Just gonna do a little mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Only thing I want to check is to see how loud it is on our stream. So I'll just make sure it doesn't sound like that. Maybe a little bit. What do you think?
Sounds fine.
Filter on it. It's not bad. All right.
There it is.
All right, we're gonna get started here in just a second, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Again, not really set up for 2 people in booth, but you know what? We're gonna make it work here on the charge today. And before we get going, of course, this is my boy Pete over here. You guys know him. He's a regular here on the channel on a Wednesday, but also, you know, kind of the OG streamer with me as well. You know, we started this off as like YouTube videos and all this other stuff. So 4 years later, man, it doesn't feel like it's 4 years, but
Dude, it really doesn't. It's exciting though. I mean, it's funny, like, you actually look exactly the same, almost. I probably look 15 years older. It's hilarious.
we'll take a look at some old clips maybe a little bit in the future episode, maybe like our 4-year anniversary, which I think is like August. You know, kind of send the mood up for that. But we got a lot to talk about here, guys. Thank you for your patience as we kind of set this up. Of course, it's your boy Bernie here. Pete, we're going to talk about the NBA news and rumors and also basketball analysis and emphasis on the basketball analysis because we have a lot of not only player injuries and COVID protocols to go over, we have some coach firings and also just this All-NBA. You know, I titled this stream, the All-NBA is a joke, or the voting for it is a joke, because I feel like it is in the fact that they have a lot of these guys that I don't think really know basketball the way that I think some people should be focusing on an award, especially when $30 million is on the line. You got to study more than just watching the all national games. You have to watch some league pass stuff. You have to actually continually watch NBA, which I feel like a lot of these guys don't. I mean, it's impossible really to even try and do that. But before we get started, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Also, guys, remember to hit to go and check out the merch. We got official merch.
Get your mugs, dude.
Get your mugs.
Get your mugs.
Get your mean mugs out here. Get yourself a mug. I'll put it in the chat as we kind of talk about a little bit more. Let's go to the live scene really quick to kind of move on, talk about it quick. Let me see here. Ooh, right.
There we go.
There. All right. That way it's a little bit nicer in the camera. But let's go to ESPN really quick to talk about the articles and the stories that we're going to be covering. Obviously, we have Van Gundy out, but we're going to start with the main one just because this, to me, is a kind of serious one for a lot of reasons, and that is, of course, that Chris Paul is out indefinitely due to the health, the safety protocols of the NBA when it comes to COVID. You know, there's still not any questions or reason as to how he was in this. I don't know whether it was because he jumped into the stands after they won their game and for Denver, and, you know, he was hugging a bunch of people, you know, kind of dapping people up. But Pete, I mean, this is probably a huge loss to the Phoenix Suns, depending on how many days he's out and how long this series between, well, I guess it's only going to be 2 more games, right? So, you know.
They got 3, right? It's 2-2. So it depends. It depends. I mean, I think they're going to get lucky. I think they're really going to get lucky because the Jazz and the Clippers, I think, is a 7-game series. It just really feels that way. And they just so happen to get this sweep at the perfect time. I mean, this sucks and it's really risky, but I mean, when it comes down to it, this is about as good of a time for it to happen if it was going to happen.
Right.
I mean, it's a travesty though. If he misses any games, this is the ultimate like CP3 curse. You know, it's always something. And I am going to stay hopeful because I think that coming back from that shoulder injury against the Lakers was like, it felt like something was different, right? Mm-hmm. It seemed like that was it. I wrote them off at the time. He gets hurt. He looks messed up. Came right back, though. So, I mean, I'm hopeful he has enough time. I'm hopeful even if it goes long, he probably could still make it into the series, right?
Yeah, I think he could make it into the series, but I still think not having him in the roster, not having him just kind of be in control of the ball. You saw how effective he was in game. Was it 5 or 6 for them when they were playing against the Nuggets? Or actually, no, it was a sweep.
It was 4. Yeah,
4.
He was insane. He could have gone for 60 in that game.
Like the mid-range game for him was unstoppable. His passing ability is just amazing. You know, the set that they run to get Chris Paul, kind of the options is kind of just running a double screen. You know, having one guy roll, one guy stay up, pick and pop. But Chris Paul found a way to kind of maneuver himself in there, put a guy behind his back, and then was just able to shoot the jumper, the mid-range. And that's what killed the Denver Nuggets, because other than Jokic, they didn't really have anybody to help, facilitate that. But not having a guy like Chris Paul on the roster, or just having him be there, is going to be a huge, huge problem, because I think it's just going to create more pressure for Booker. And we've already seen a Booker Ayton without Chris Paul before last year, and it just was not up to standard. I mean, maybe the bench guys and the role guys can come in and kind of help a little bit more. But we'll find out as we kind of continue. I know, Tyrese, we're going to talk about that Kawhi news in a second, but we're going to first focus on the CP3 news.
I mean, I'm going to stay hopeful. I think this Suns team is different in general. Like, I think just having that guiding voice of CP3 and Monty Williams is different for them. But even then, I don't know. I'm going to choose to be, hopefully optimistic for them with the amount of time they're going to have between these games, that hopefully he can be back. Hopefully. But they definitely need him. It'll be tough without him. That's for sure, against either of the teams.
Yeah, I think whatever team they decide to go against, well, obviously they don't decide, but whatever team they go up against, it's going to be a tough battle. Obviously, Utah, a well-coached team, similar to Phoenix in the matter that their role players and their bench guys really bring the energy, bring the effort to help Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as kind of like the stars of the team. Whereas the opposite for the Clippers, which we'll get into a little bit later, they're really star-dependent on Kawhi Leonard. I mean, if you look at his TPA numbers, and let me pull that up. I know I'm the TPA king on this channel, but if you really look at the TPA, and with him being gone on that, if we go to NBA Math and really look at like the numbers for him. Again, I also have a Twitter if you guys want to follow that as well, at the Stream Charge. Shameless plug there. If we look at the TPA, Kawhi Leonard is all the way on the top right. And you see that the minutes played versus his total points average or total points added, he's number one in the league right now. And it's not even close.
Which says a lot. I mean, look at the man he's right next to. I mean, it says something of how important Kawhi is to the team. It's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll find out what happens for this series. I mean, again, Kawhi is definitely out. I mean, look where Paul George is in this list. All the way down here in total points added, which is really bad for the amount of minutes that he plays.
Yeah, the one thing, and I'm going to be this guy, and I hate to be this guy, all right? I actually like what I've been seeing from Paul George the last couple games, and this is coming from, like, I had completely written this guy off after that first Dallas series. Mm-hmm. There's something about Paul George that really kind of befuddles me, like the way he plays basketball or his approach to basketball, and I'm very enlightened to see that maybe Chauncey Billups is kind of actually getting into his head and showing him, like, you don't necessarily need to just be Paul George, you're huge and you're really good at passing the ball and playmaking, so do it. Right. And he has been doing it. Like, I think he's going to have a monster game tonight, genuinely. I don't think they're going to win in Utah. It's in Utah tonight, right? I don't think they're going to win. But I think he's going to have a monster game. He's been playing up lately in terms of, what he does. But Kawhi is a huge loss. And based on what they're already saying about Kawhi, he's not coming back this series.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
He's not. There's no way. There is no way he comes back. The enlightening thing I would also say for the Clippers is that it finally seems like Ty Lue has a rotation. Finally, it only took halfway through this series to get a rotation, but Man is finally playing, right? Which is it's insane. He wasn't getting minutes the first few games. It didn't make any sense. They don't have Rondo playing anymore either, which is a good thing, I think, for them. We'll see, though. It's going to be a really tough game without Kawhi.
Yeah, and, we got Tyrese kind of saying in the chat, Payne developed himself, kind of talked a little bit. I think his message just got retracted, but, I think he has been playing really well. You've definitely seen a Payne and Cam Johnson and a bunch of these guys, Saric even, Saric was a huge, you saw the impact that he made when he was in Philadelphia, and I think he's doing the same thing here in Phoenix, and, I think you are right. I do think that the Suns will be okay, just because obviously they have a lot of time. The league can just make up some rule being like, oh, well, he's vaccinated, so, and the CDC, again, YouTube, don't be mad, but the CDC says you don't have to quarantine, I believe, if you have gotten your vaccine shots.
Okay.
And that's something from the CDC. So maybe the NBA could be like, well, the CDC says it's okay that you have gotten your shots, and you got exposed, that you don't have to sit out. But
yeah, I mean, oh man, it's gonna be really interesting. Especially, I think it's funny. It's funny that it shows how being ready for what you need to do in terms of performing on a nightly basis makes a difference for these teams, right? Like the Suns played themselves into a position to be okay with CP3 having something come up, right? The Clippers have been playing down in certain games to the point like this is the problem. This is the problem. When you give games away by not having rotations and playing people that have no business on the court, of course it matters when something like this happens. Like this is gonna probably be the end of their season, which is crazy.
Let's see here. I feel like Paul George feeds off Kawhi, but we'll see. I doubt he has a big game tonight in Utah. No way. Tyrese is saying blowout.
Hey, I mean,
if you're the NBA, I know you're my NBA hypothetical bookie.
I'll be honest with you. I put some money on Paul George tonight in just the individual performance category, right? I think there's something going on with Paul George in terms of his confidence just seems different in the last couple games. Like he really does seem like he's kind of getting past that Paul George in the playoffs, playoff P type mentality.
Pfizer P.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think they're going to win. I think he's going to get it in his head that he doesn't need Kawhi, maybe, We'll see. Tyrese definitely might be right. I am not the type to bet on Paul George. It could be a tragic mistake. I usually run away from Paul George. So,
Alex, you said, what's up, Alex? NBA won't do anything because they don't want small market teams in the finals. LeBron went to a party with Drake and didn't have COVID protocols.
I mean, maybe it's possible. CP3 will be fine. He's the president for Players Association. He'll be back game 1. Hammer. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I bet the money line on Utah too. I think they're going to win. I just bet Paul George's individual game, to be honest with you. CP3 would be fine if he's it depends, man. They're pretty strict with that COVID stuff.
Yeah, I think they are. I don't know. It's a little too strict in my opinion. I do think that they need to
lighten up
just a little bit.
Somebody like CP3, they'll lighten up.
But I do, Alex, this is kind of the point that I was kind of debating myself, talking about, LeBron James and his COVID protocol.
Yep.
Talking about, that he didn't need to be in there because everyone was vaccinated. And it just depends on how Chris Paul got in contact with it, whether it was through going to the arena and hugging people or whether it was something that he did, maybe a State Farm party that he had. And just, him and Sabrina and Jake, they were just all, partying.
Yeah.
It's just, we don't know the full ramifications or even the whole story behind how Chris Paul got into the protocol in the first place, which is why I would like a little bit more transparency on that.
Yeah. We'll get it, I think.
And we'll just find out, what was the reasoning, because I talked about this before in a stream, or maybe I made a video about it. I felt the same way about LeBron James as I did with, Kyrie Irving and James Harden, in the matter that it's although, the pandemic, for the most part, has not been, or, we're starting to lighten up, restrictions are being removed from tons of places, you still have a responsibility of just not putting yourself in a situation where the NBA has to make a decision like that.
I think the only thing is with a guy like CP3, I think the flack the NBA would get in return for not letting him play is just too much. That's I do agree with you in that sense. Why are they're not going to bench or not let CP3 play in his Western Conference Finals? It's a small example is Jokic getting kicked out of that game 4, right? You saw the backlash that the NBA got just from kicking out the MVP for a hard foul. They're not going to make CP3 sit out too many games.
Yeah.
Not too many. I mean, maybe 1 or 2, but he'll be back for sure.
And let's kind of move on to what we're talking about here on the chart that you see on the screen right now, and that's just the Clippers, man. Kawhi Leonard out indefinitely. We talked about a little bit. We kind of hinted at it.
Yep.
this to me is the biggest breaking news for Clippers fans, and just fans of the NBA in general. The reason why I say that is because we see, Kawhi Leonard is putting up monster numbers in the TPA, from defensive points saved to offensive points added. He is on a whole different level right now. You can see it on the right-hand side. This was just from last night, so Kawhi hasn't played another game, but you can see that if he does play another game, if he would have played another game, he would have still been a little bit higher than KD in this chart. But even if you look at the just total TPA, again, total points added, from the other chart, which is just TPA in general, and then minutes played, like, he is such a tremendous player, man. And it's crazy to me that, unfortunately, it just comes to an end with this injury.
Yeah, and it's sad too, because there's a stat flying around. I think it was maybe Ryan Russillo who dug this one up about how many 30-point games that Kawhi and Paul George had at the same time in their Clippers career, right? And up until this playoff series, they had only had 3 ever.
Oh, wow.
Over 2 years.
Jeez.
They had 2 back-to-back, right?
Yeah.
And now this happens. It's just kind of like it goes to show when, like, you take so long to finally get things right. It's just a bummer, man.
Yeah.
It kind of screams to me like this playoffs in general has been a story of not only the injuries, but some really, really poor, like, just coaching choices in terms of getting guys in the right position to succeed soon enough for it to matter.
Yeah.
Between Ty Lue and Bud,
don't even get me started.
It's kind of it's kind of shocking because you have to think, like, the Clippers are probably pretty annoyed, right? Like, I would be pretty upset because now they're going to lose this series most likely.
Yeah.
They shouldn't even have been down as bad as they were.
Yeah, we're going to find out, especially when it comes to the Clippers. I kind of talked about it on last night's stream, is that, I think the NBA playoffs, and I've seen it a lot from other guys that have talked about it. Cuffs the Legend talked about it, another guy that I follow, great follow, is that he talked about it more so that the playoffs really exposes players that don't have a lot in their toolbox, because you look and see at all the games that these players have played against in the regular season, right? You're playing your Detroits, you're playing your Cleveland Cavaliers, you're playing your really awful teams, and it just exposes really bad teams and bad players that take advantage, and you can see who's really a regular season player and who's really about that postseason. And I think that's a combination of that, but also a combination of just being healthy at the right time.
Oh, 100%. We could, directly based on what you're talking about, we could talk about the Bucks Nets.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into that? Because I think there's one player in particular we need to talk about.
Let's talk about that as soon as we finish with the Clippers a little bit, just because, we kind of talked about Kawhi being gone. That's kind of the big news. Joel Embiid also not healthy as well. We can go in that direction, talk about that game tonight. So, with the Clippers, without Kawhi Leonard, whether he's back for Game 6 and 7 or if he's just out for the series in general, what's the outlook for the Clippers going into the offseason if they get swept or they're done? I guess not swept, but if they're done.
It's pretty tough. I want to start it off like this. It's going to be really tough for the Clippers to win. It's not over.
Yeah.
It's not over. Donovan Mitchell's not healthy. His ankle is definitely messed up, and I know he hasn't been necessarily playing like it. Like, he put up a ton of points in the last game. He was 6 of 24. Like, you could tell he was hurt.
Yeah.
You could tell he was hurt the whole game. And, we'll talk more about the All-NBA stuff later, but Gobert was god-awful. He was so atrocious in that last game.
He was really bad in the first 3 quarters. He kind of pulled himself together in that last one, but
it just didn't matter. The Clippers were already ahead so much, it's like a fluky quarter. He was terrible. He was awful. And when that is your second best player and an all-NBA caliber player, in quotes, right? I don't think the Clippers can necessarily feel like they're out of it. Like, if that's what you're getting from your second best player as Utah, why are the Clippers scared? I wouldn't be scared even without Kawhi. Not saying they're going to win. I'm just saying there's no reason for them to be terrified of the Jazz. Yeah. Conley's probably not going to play, is he?
I don't think so.
He didn't look like he was anywhere near getting ready to suit back up during Game 5.
Yeah, so I don't think he's
coming back. Excuse me. Yeah. To answer your question, though, I think the Clippers, man, they're in a weird spot now, because isn't it going to be fluky enough where they could write this off as like, man, if Kawhi didn't get injured, let's run it back.
Yeah, but I just don't know if Kawhi wants to be back. I mean,
that's a good question.
like, I think he looks at this roster, looks at the players that he has. I mean, this roster, it's not a bad roster. I think that there's actually some really good pieces there. Man's not a bad player. I think he's actually really good. Patrick Beverly is someone you probably have to get rid of.
100%.
Zubac, another guy that I would see if you can get something trade-wise for him. Paul George, 9 of 20. I know he scored 31, but 9 of 20 is just not... I mean, it's somewhat efficient, but...
I mean, I think that Paul George is where the answer is right there. Like, what they're going to do with Paul George is the bigger question in the sense that I don't think Kawhi wants to leave LA. Like, I think this is the team he wants to play for, right? He wouldn't have chose to go there. I think the problem is he chose to have PG be his guy, right? Mm-hmm. I still think that if there's any outcome where one of these guys leaves, it's going to be the whole they're just going to Blake Griffin, Paul George, and just trade him in the first month of next season.
But then again, it just comes back to, and I talked about this later, but before we do, Justin, how you doing, man?
What's up, Justin?
My huge issue, though, is that this is going to be Paul George's 5th or 6th team now. I mean, he's being passed around. Like,
somebody will take him.
I mean, someone will take him, but I just don't think he's worth the money. He's not worth second string or even third best player on your team.
Sure. Well, that's the question. I mean, what small market team would want a guy like Paul George, right? And what kind of player are you looking for in return, right?
Yeah. I think they trade Tyrese. You said I think they trade Paul George. Yeah, they probably will. I think if this doesn't work out, if whatever happens in the storyline, I think Paul George does have to get traded because I feel like he's just made excuse after excuse when it comes to why he hasn't been the Paul George that we remember in Indiana. I think there's a lot of factors to that.
Like, I hate to say this name because everybody uses this guy all the time for trades right now, but like, why not Beal? Seriously, why not? Who is Washington going to get in return that's a bigger name than Paul George? And why? When would Clippers ever say no to a Beal for Paul George trade? They would never say no to that. They would have to give more, I think. I think the Lakers would package Kuzma and others for PG. Davis and LeBron. I mean, maybe. I just don't think they have the juice to get it. I don't think there's enough.
I think when it comes to like, I mean, we'll see what Paul George is worth. I think Kawhi Leonard probably should have went to the Lakers if he wanted to more championships.
But mistake.
But at the same time, I think the hardest part for me, like the hardest thing that I find with Paul George is that, is he going to be happy or okay with being the third string on the team? Like,
but why would the Clippers care?
Not the Clippers, but I think Paul George. Does
he have a no trade clause?
I think he does have a no trade clause, but I have to double check on that again, guys. If you want merch, here's the merch link if you are interested.
I'd be really, really shocked if the Clippers put that in there. With like no restrictions, basically, right? It doesn't seem like it's their style, because they got that mega contract with Blake with the no trade clause in there, right?
Yeah,
I guess PG is a little bit different than Blake Griffin is. I don't know, man. There's only 2 teams I could really see Kawhi leaving for.
Stevens with the sign and trade.
Brown. I mean, honestly, I don't think I was going to say the Celtics as a team for Kawhi.
I would love for him to come to the Celtics, but I'm really pessimistic about Stevens being the president.
Okay, well, I think we need to talk about this in a second. But the Celtics are one team. I think the Heat is the real team.
The Heat.
If there is a team that's going to sweep him up and say, hey,
Pat Riley,
it's the Heat. Like, that is pretty much the only team I could see Kawhi leaving for. And I know there's a lot of talk about my New York Knicks being the team. I just don't see it happening. I don't think him and Tibbs really go together in terms of their philosophy of how they like to push the envelope. But I really think if Kawhi leaves, it's the Heat, but more likely than not, PG is the guy that gets moved.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. I think Steve Ballmer, from all the rumors that we heard about, potential yachts and boats that apparently went to Kawhi Leonard, you got to do everything you can to keep that guy there, because it's like you gave this guy everything, and if he just goes up and leaves, you're going to be pretty salty about it.
I mean, you would have to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as the Clippers organization, I think they only have to blame themselves. Why the hell did you get Ty Lue? I mean, I'm sorry.
We talked about this before.
We've talked about it for years. I mean, he literally was not a proven coach, even though he had a championship, which is not a nice thing to say, but he joined a championship team midway through the season, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. They don't have anybody to blame but themselves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think Tyronn Lue is just not the guy. We've talked about Tyronn Lue and his coaching ability. Not saying that he's like the worst coach in the world, but it's just if that's your championship caliber coach and LeBron is not part of that discussion, it's just not going to happen. I know that a lot of people talked about Tyronn Lue making a lot of coaching adjustments, but I really think that was Chauncey Billups, man. I really am really high on Chauncey Billups as a head basketball coach. Kind of the reason why I think I have him as like my number one for Celtics, why they should get him as the head coach for them. But like when I look at these stats, when I look at everything, I just don't think that Tyronn Lue, his track record from last year, I think Doc Rivers was kind of with him there, and you could see that it just didn't work out for him. Mm-hmm. And then this year, Tyronn Lue, I just don't think that I don't think he's good enough to be a finals coach without LeBron.
No, I mean, it's to me. I've watched every minute of this series. There is no way, if you know what you're watching in terms of being a basketball fan, more than just a Twitter typer, right? Yeah. There's no way you can watch his coaching and think he's done a good job.
People on the other networks will tell you something else.
It's just wrong, though. It's just wrong. There is no reason they should have gone to a Game 7 with Dallas.
Yeah.
There's no reason. That Dallas team was atrocious besides Luka. Atrocious. And now, I mean, Donovan Mitchell has been hurt this whole series. He's been hurt the whole series, and they've known exactly what the Utah Jazz's offense is every second of the series. How do you not just double him the whole time and make the other Jazz players make plays?
It took him until I believe, this Game 4, actually.
It was really Game 3 when they put man back in the rotation and just actually started to play defense. I mean, it was just, you can tell that Ty Lue is not actively making changes per game. They go in with a plan, and if the plan doesn't work, they run it until the game is over.
Yeah.
And then they try something new. That's not coaching. That's just
managing.
It's not even really managing. It's just making your guys figure it out. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's definitely something interesting. Tyrese talked about. I just don't think Kawhi would want Miami, a family man. I could see more Paul George to Miami, Mark Jackson, or Chauncey on the Celtics. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yes,
Sam with Frank Vogel with the Lakers. I don't think he's the one. I really don't either.
I think that's apples and oranges.
You think
I think that's apples and oranges.
But do you think Frank Vogel's a good coach?
I think he's a much better coach than Ty Lue is.
Well, he's a much better coach, but do you think he's the guy, like, if you were to, LeBron James, going into a last couple of, last legs a little bit here and there, is that the guy you want to be your coach? Or would you rather have, like, some of these other guys that are on the bench, or would you get a new guy to come in? Because I don't think that he does a really good job with his rotations either.
I mean, maybe. I don't think that was their problem, though. I don't think that had anything to do with why they're not in the playoffs. They just played way too many minutes and weren't healthy. I mean, like, I don't know if you're a Lakers fan, how you could be that upset with this season. Like, this is what you get with AD. This has been him since he's been in the league.
True.
It's literally the same thing every season, whether it's feast or famine. He's either healthy and you make it really far, or you don't, And LeBron, the thing with having a coach with LeBron, I mean, LeBron is he's making decisions for the rotations. It's not just Vogel, right?
Yeah, to me, the one that I'm just like so baffled about was Wesley Matthews. He was just so bad this year in general. Like, he didn't really make an impact that I thought a lot of people when he was in Dallas. Like, he just didn't make that same impact. And then Dennis Schroeder was he had his ups and he had his downs, and then you had Montrezl Harrell again, same guy. Was really high, but then when they brought Andre Drummond in, and a bunch of these guys, Marc Gasol as well, it's like you saw his minutes come way down, and you saw him.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the problem, I would say a lot of the problem was the way they constructed the team was literally just a bunch of big men really,
Yeah.
right? And then their big guy that they go to get this season is Andre Drummond. Like, the definition of we know what that guy is. He's just rebounds, and he doesn't really bring much. So, like, how much of that was Frank Vogel is really a question to me, right? Like, do you think he was the only one that thought Andre Drummond was the answer for them? I don't think so.
No.
I think LeBron and AD probably wanted to make that decision too.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think Vogel is one of those ones where it's a bigger question than somebody like Ty Lue, and I think I couldn't blame somebody for having a harsh opinion on Frank Vogel either. Because there is moments where his rotations are pretty bad, right? They just are.
Yeah.
Lakers paying $15 million a year for Danny Green was a huge miss. Green was a championship piece until he raised his salary 14 years into the league. Yeah, I mean, and look at what Danny Green is. I mean, he can't play right now.
Yeah.
Can't play.
I mean, the one video that I sent my friend Josh, or our friend Josh, I sent him a Hawks video on like a b-ball breakdown on like how they've been able to do it. I mean, when you have Trae Young and Capella or Collins in a pick and roll scenario, like you see that their favorite one is when Danny Green is guarding Trae Young, and it's over.
I mean, Danny Green is unplayable against Trae Young. It's so bad. It's so mismatched. What are we watching? Watching some highlights?
Just watch some highlights of kind of the Clippers and Jazz. This was game 4.
Yeah, this like the big thing for the Jazz. Like if they have any hopes, and even beating a Kawhi-less Clippers is the role players, man. They have to step up.
Yeah, I thought Niang was terrible and
awful
in game 4.
No minutes for him. Seriously, that was so bad.
Bogdanovich also didn't play very well. It's kind of like your third guy. I mean, I guess Clarkson's more of your third guy. I mean, if we look back at the box scores, we kind of flip between both.
That's a big question. I mean, who is their third guy?
I mean, to me, it's got to be Clarkson. You know, Clarkson as the 6th man of the year has to play much better. 3 of 12 is not going to cut it. 2 of 8 from 3-point land, not going to cut it.
All those makes were in the second half too, when it was dead time.
And it's just like you need your 6th man, especially playing 30 minutes off the bench. You need him to step up and really give you the minutes that you're expecting from him. You know, I don't expect Niang to give me tons of points. I don't expect
Royce O'Neal
or any of these guys. But what I expect from a lot of a guy like Jordan Clarkson or a guy like Derek Favors, you know, Derek Favors unfortunately just got postered in that game. But you really need a lot out of Clarkson. I think Clarkson, to me, in that game 4 was so atrocious, and he's got to step it up in this next performance.
I think it's all Gobert. Controversial. I was considering him a role player to be a harsh guy right there. You know.
I mean, but you're not wrong though. I mean, 8 rebounds for a guy that's supposed to be kind of that type of player. That's not going to cut it at all for this squad. So they're going to have to figure out.
Because think of the big guys he's actually even going against on the Clippers. Think of it. I mean, he's getting outworked by Zubac. Like, that says something that I don't think any amount of defensive player of the years or all NBA votes is ever going to illustrate. Like, if this is your guy, you need better than 8 rebounds and 8 points or whatever he did. It was always only 8 points, right? 4 of 4 from the field.
He had 11.
With some free throws too. Okay. But I mean, you gotta have more. You gotta have more. And you know, we keep talking about the All NBA votes. The thing that shocks me is like, how is that guy an All NBA player?
I'm gonna give you some more shocking ones. I think that there's a lot more. I think there's some more egregious ones out there, and we'll talk about that. Why don't we talk about that now? I think that's probably
Let's do it.
It's probably the one that I have kind of been baffled with. And the reason why I'll do it this way is just because we can see a lot of the photos. All MMA.
The All MMA team. Let's see. Because I have some problems with this list too.
All right. So we're just going to go over the list really quick, talk about who made it, who didn't make it, or I guess who made it, and then we'll kind of go who we think should have made it. Well, you know, it's kind of the end result, and we'll figure out, you know, whether these media votes should be taken away from them and, you know, kind of a reform should be happening. But
there's one on here that's actually like a crime on this first team.
This first team?
There's a crime that occurred on this first team. Do you know who it is? Who should be on that team that didn't make it?
Probably Dame.
How is Embiid not on that team?
He got hurt.
Dude, there's no reason Kawhi should have been on there over Embiid. There's no reason. Embiid, if he hadn't been hurt, was the best player all season.
Unfortunately, it's tied by power forward, center, small forward.
It's just so ridiculous because you have all these guys in the media who want to talk about positionless basketball. Everybody is talking about it, but nobody. We don't vote as if that's what it is. Why do we pretend it's something that's different if everybody acknowledges that it's something different, right? Because look at, what is Luka on this list?
Shouldn't have been.
I think he should be on the list. What position is he on there as?
I think they probably have him as like a power forward or shooting guard, I think.
He's not. He's a point guard.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. The position part of this whole thing is just a travesty. And, as we get farther in, there's a reason certain people didn't make the list. Yeah. And it's because of this position garbage.
That's probably number one.
Garbage, dude. Embiid needed to be on the first team.
Yeah.
Actually a crime.
So let's talk about the list really quick. We got Giannis Antetokounmpo. We got Nikola Jokic, Steph, Wardell Curry, Luka Doncic, don't know his middle name. And we got Kawhi Leonard in the first team. Second team, we got Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, Chris Paul, Julius Randle, and LeBron James. Third team, we got Rudy Gobert, Jimmy Butler, Pandemic P, Paul George, Bradley Beal, and Kyrie Irving. So, I think the first thing we got to start with is just this backlog. Three guys that I think should have definitely made the team. I think Donovan Mitchell should have been up there.
100,000%.
Jason Tatum, I think, should have made the team, whether it was third team or whatever.
1,000%.
And I think I think Booker should have also made one.
He's the one that's a little questionable. I would actually say Zion.
I think Zion. Okay.
I mean, if you're gonna give Beal the reward of being on the team just for having good stats, right? That's the reason he's on there, right? His team wasn't that great, and I know they ended up making the playoffs, but Zion, like, if you're voting statistically, he was an anomaly. And if you're gonna reward the bad team, good stats guy, like, look at what just happened today. They fired Stan Van Gundy because it was a coaching abomination in New Orleans.
It always
and
has.
Zion still played that good. That is a crime, dude. I'm sorry. The Beal stuff, I know he puts up crazy points, but it's wild.
I think for me, the biggest one is Jimmy Butler. I just think
that one's crazy too.
Because he missed a lot of it due to COVID protocol. Unfortunately, that just happens, whether it was an injury or whether it's COVID.
Yeah.
But my frustrating thing about it is that you had a guy in Mitchell or Tatum, especially Mitchell, for a guy that was the number one
best player
on the Jazz and the best team as the number one overall seed just in both conferences. Like, how does he not make it? And then a guy like Jimmy Butler who, I think this is just like a retroactive, like, here it is from the bubble award, because I really don't understand why a guy like Jimmy Butler right now is on this list. Like, he had a solid season, missed a lot of time due to the COVID stuff, but then all of a sudden you're just seeing it. It's just like, I just can't fathom as to why a guy like Jimmy Butler is on this list for this season. It says the 2020-21 NBA season. So when the 2020 season started, it was way past the bubble. And I just think that these reporters, and the way that, if you guys don't know how it works, is that there are voters, that are reporters, media people, and I think old NBA players, but mostly it's the reporters and media people.
Yeah.
The people that you get on NBA Fast Break, like whether, maybe Rachel Nichols was on there. I know Maria Taylor was also a voter.
I know, like, Zach Lowe is a voter.
Zach Lowe.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Bill Simmons is a voter too, I think.
I don't know how those guys can show me. I really want to, like, interview one of these guys and be like, how can you tell me that Jimmy Butler made the All-NBA team?
I mean, you could say the same thing about Rudy. Why is he on there over Donovan Mitchell? Like, to me, that is one of the craziest, like, you're rewarding the wrong person I've seen in a long time. Like, Donovan Mitchell is the leading scorer, and he's a great defender. People don't like to admit it, right? I don't know what it is about Donovan Mitchell that makes people want to say he's not a good defender. I don't really get it. He is. He's really pretty solid on the perimeter. Like, he's one of the, above mid-average defenders on, on the outside. So saying that, and he's your leading scorer, and then you reward Gobert with the third team, and he's defensive player. It's just like, it's all of it is crazy. Jimmy Butler is crazy that he's on this list. The Heat were terrible all year long.
Yeah.
They had little stretches of being kind of like, you know, formidable like they were last year, but they underperformed the entire season, and nobody would be able to deny that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. I mean, honestly would have put Mitchell over Kyrie. I mean, Kyrie also missed a lot of time, whatever, you know, kind of the stuff that he was dealing with.
Yeah, we're not even talking about Jason Tatum. Like, the fact that Jason Tatum isn't on this list is a travesty. He's one of the 10 best players in the league. Like, who watches the Celtics and think they have even 25 wins without Jason Tatum?
You're not wrong. I mean, it just kind of goes to show you that they need to really reform this this award. I understand that, you know, it could mess up the centers, but I still think even then you saw the impact of Jokic win the MVP. I think Sean had a question saying that is Jokic the worst MVP in recent history?
Not even close. Like, not even close. I don't think that's fair at all.
No.
I mean, I could name a few. Like Russell Westbrook. Like, how can we compare those two seasons? Like, Jokic was insane. And really, if his team hadn't fallen apart, like, health-wise in the last month, there's no reason Denver wouldn't be in the Western Conference Finals, if you ask me. Paul George and Jimmy over Jason Tatum, it's actually a crime. Like, a crime has occurred. Can we go back to the second team for just a second?
Yeah, we'll go back to the second team.
I got to look at this. LeBron James, I mean, another example, like, I'm going to say something controversial, Bernie. You know I love LeBron.
I think I know what you're going to say.
I have his Wheatie box sitting. I have both of them, his old one and his new one, in my house.
I think my dad does too. He buys like a bunch of these.
I have them, dude. I get LeBron stuff if I can, right? There is no reason that LeBron James should be higher than Jason Tatum on this list. There's no reason. Right? Like, LeBron James missed a ton of games. Oh my gosh. Okay, we have to stop and talk about this.
Guys, we got some late-breaking news from the NBA. Shams reported it, is that Kawhi Leonard has suffered an ACL injury. Again, he's going to be out indefinitely. So, again, it's not saying that it's a tear or anything like that, but it is an ACL injury.
Oh, that sucks.
And again, it just kind of goes to the narrative of Kawhi Leonard's injury history, man. It blows. I think this kind of is a huge impact on the Clippers right now. Not torn, but he suffered ACL injuries. So
that's actually like pain right there. I mean, going back to our conversation of what the Clippers do, they have to run it back now. Like, he's going to sign 1 year with them, right? Or do you think he's going to pull a KD now? Just go somewhere else, just do another thing?
I think he's going to pull a KD.
Yeah, you think so? Maybe this is it. Maybe he pulls the KD.
Yeah.
Leaves and sits out a year somewhere, you know? Makes sense. Maybe, you know, honestly, I hate to say it, the Knicks kind of make more sense now.
Do you think the Knicks make more sense?
The Knicks make more sense if he's going to sit a year.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so unfortunate, dude. This postseason is going to be very, very interesting to see what the NBA does in terms of getting the next season started, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know what the conversation is about how soon after this year they're going to start. Is it normal?
Yeah, I think they're going to go back to, like, the normal, so, like, October.
Yeah, that is so awful, man. That's really unfortunate. I'm curious how much flack the NBA is going to get for pushing this season.
They've already gotten a lot of flack.
I know, but I'm curious to see, like, if it gets really, like, it gets escalated after the postseason with all these guys. Because now think about it, right? If he's out extended into next season, and then you have all these other guys extended into the next season, like, they're going to have 5 to 10 stars out. Like, Kyrie is hurt too. I don't think do you think Kyrie's playing again in the playoffs?
I think he's playing again, but we'll see, like, how. I just think it's a really bad ankle sprain.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. If Paul George is about it, he's got to get his team to Western Conference Finals. I mean, that would be a huge moment for Paul George in terms of breaking some stereotypes about him. I just am not so sure he's got the mentality to do so. Where do you see the report? It's Shams tweeted it.
So we'll put it up on the screen really quick to show you guys. Shams reported it right here.
1 hour ago.
1 hour ago. Clippers fear All-Star Kawhi Leonard has suffered an ACL injury, sources say, and he's out indefinitely. So,
jeez. And then you got these like clowns, like more karma for Kawhi. He went to a different team. Shut up.
That's Twitter for you, man.
Twitter's the worst. Yikes. Yeah, that really is terrible.
So we'll see what happens. Let's see here. So, according to John Amadaro, the Suns have the highest level of participation of vaccines in the league, which includes players, coaches, staffs, etc. Chris Paul did have a positive test. So, I don't know. Well, I mean,
they have weeks.
Yeah.
You know, at least a week, right, before the next whatever it is. So,
yeah.
That is better than that Kawhi report, that's for sure. Yeah, that's super unfortunate. It really seemed like he was really hurt after that game. You know, like you could tell on his face he was messed up. But that is
that's unfortunate, man.
Yeah,
that sucks. But Sean, kind of go back to your question: how can you compare Jokic to an averaging a triple double?
I mean, I don't.
I just think for me, like when it comes to that type of stuff, I think we're now in an overinflated offensive NBA market. Like the way that the stock market is just the way that I feel like NBA offensive stats are. It's like there's no more hand checking. There's no more like there's a lot more skill to score in the game, and it's easier to score than ever. Just in terms of whether you get fouls or, because the defense can't be so handsy with you and just kind of keep in front of you. The reason why I don't think averaging a triple-double in today's game is because also the pace of play has gone up, man. If you look at how it was even just 10 years ago, maybe even just 20 years ago in the early 2000s, it's very different from you're actually backing down your opponent, you're wasting the shot clock, and then you're getting a good shot, or you're running a set to run a mid-range jumper. It's like...
Well, and here he says it again. Like Westbrook averaged a triple double with 31 points and won the MVP. Jokic got swept without Murray. I mean, I think that's kind of it right there. Like, it's just stats, and I think we've seen what that triple double for Westbrook meant in the last few seasons. And I know he's getting older, so you could use that as a reason why it changes things. But they're just numbers, really, right? Does it impact winning? Like, Westbrook wasn't going to take his team to the championship no matter what numbers he puts up.
Yeah.
There's a reason the perception around Westbrook as a player has changed in general. And I think comparing his impact on winning to somebody like Jokic I think it's pretty different. I mean, I respect your opinion. It's hard to take the MVP away from Westbrook. I'm not trying to say that. It's more... like, Jokic really could have led this team back to the Western Conference Finals if they were healthy. Because Michael Porter Jr. is hurt, too. Yeah. He was hurt. His back was not right. And he, there was always those reports that came out about MPJ coming out of college, right? He's had the worst medical report ever,
But Jokic wasn't going to either.
I mean... that's a little different, though. I think you can say that because he didn't, right? But he didn't have Murray... healthy MPJ, Will Barton until the last game. I mean, half the team was hurt. Half the team.
But I think that the worst MVP was probably the Derrick Rose 2010, 2011. I thought that should have been LeBron James. I really do.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but LeBron James did deserve that MVP.
I mean, I think he deserved most of those MVPs in that 6-year stretch, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a difference of opinion. You can feel one way about Westbrook, but I think the version of Westbrook we saw in Washington this year, it's kind of who he is. You're a ceiling raiser, but not by much, not enough.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, man.
You want to talk about? Let's talk about Philly and Atlanta.
You want to talk about Philly and
Atlanta? I think we should talk about that.
You want to talk about how wrong you were about the Hawks, or?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that. I've admitted it to you in private. I guess I should probably do it now.
Hey, don't talk about my boy D-Rose.
Don't talk about my boy D-Rose. Hey, I love D-Rose.
We love D-Rose.
Look at what he did for my Knicks this year, man. I love that guy.
I love D-Rose, but man, I did just when I look at the numbers LeBron put that season, it's hard to me to have him win the MVP. But I understand why he won it.
Yeah.
The Hawks, man. Let's talk about it.
What a difference a good coach can make. One,
Yeah.
Right? Like Nate McMillan, can Nate McMillan get some respect in the league for once in his life? Right? Look at what happened to the Pacers and look at what he's done for the Hawks.
Also for the Sonics.
Look at what he did for the Sonics. Give Nate McMillan some respect. Is he the best coach in the league? No. Is he definitely above average? Yes. Please give the guy his credit. Secondly, Trae Young. I'll admit it. I've been wrong about Trae Young many times. I don't necessarily like Trae Young's persona, his personality. Cannot take it away from him. I mean, some of the passes he was making, that assist he had to John Collins in the corner for the three is like, you don't get better than that. You really don't. That was perfection as far as driving into the lane and passing it out. Whew, it's beautiful.
Man, I've been saying this. I know this is going to sound like a broken record, but I've been talking about Trae Young, man. His shooting was not the reason why I liked him so much. It was his passing. And it always has been, always will be, because, and the reason why I think he can be better than Steph Curry in terms of just like as an all NBA point guard is because of his passing ability. It's very Steve Nash-esque, like, but with an offensive game of like many of the greats that we have now in today's game. Like, his passing, almost 8 to 9 assists a game is just tremendous. It's the reason why they have been doing so well. And I think, like you talked about, with the coaching change, it really opened Trae's eyes to be like, I really need to be more of a passer and really get my guys to rock more.
Yeah.
You really use the pick and roll.
Sure. Trae's top 5 most hated player in the NBA. That's why the media didn't put him on the.
He should have been on there. I think he should have been on there.
See, I'm still gonna be this guy. There's no reason.
He's this guy.
No, we already talked about people who should have made it over them. Like, would you say he should have made the list over Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker?
I think maybe over Booker.
Maybe Booker, maybe. But at least, like, Trae Young was not good the first half of the season. The Hawks were bad the first half of the season.
Very inconsistent. Yeah, that's true.
Like, they were not good. And I know a lot of it had to do with the coach and getting that stuff changed, but, like, they were there the whole time. Yeah. Trae Young was part of it. It was when they were getting in fights in the media room, arguing over passing the ball, right? You can't forget that. That's still the same season. Trae Young is better than people give him credit for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And seeing what he's been able to do against, like, this is the thing that really started to change my mind with Trae Young, is this. I thought for sure after game 2 in this series in particular against Philly, when Philly made the adjustment, took Danny Green out and said, we're going to put Thibault and Ben Simmons on Trae and just abuse this guy with huge perimeter guards, right? Mm-hmm. The 2 best perimeter guards in the whole league, without a doubt, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys. The thing that really has, like, blown my mind with Trae is he's really adjusted, like, seriously adjusted. Like, in that last game, he did not have it in the first quarter, shooting-wise. And you saw him realize it in game, and say, hey, I'm just going to take Ben Simmons and Thibault and drag them all over the court and get my guys open. And that is the way they have a good chance to win this series, which they shouldn't. They have no business beating this Philly team, but they might because of Trae Young's adjustments in game. And it's so funny too watching Bogdanovich, dude. Like, how Milwaukee has to, like, look at his performances in these games and cry themselves to sleep.
I've talked about this ad nauseum. They should have just taken the punishment, whatever it was, be like, fine, cuff us, whatever you have to do. Just take our first-round draft picks. We'll keep Bogdanovich.
There is literally no type of player they could have used more than Bogey. He would have been the exact person, because take the ball out of Giannis's hands with a guy like Bogey. Like, he's incredible in terms of just running and facilitating the offense when Trae isn't. That's their biggest strength, is, like, you think Trae is just the pure facilitator, but then you have somebody like Bogey just running it behind the scenes too. I was really impressed with John Collins too when he, turned it around in that third quarter.
Yeah. So here, more pick and roll, get Ben Simmons in there.
Yeah, like that.
I mean, this is kind of their offense, basically. It's just to come off the pick and roll, kind of see where Embiid's at. Like, if Embiid's going to stay with him, obviously dish it to Capella. That's an easy dunk. But if But if he's gonna kind of bluff and then kind of back off, then you see that Trae Young's got an elite floater, man. Like you can see that that's kind of the huge weapon against the 76ers, just that floater, just the ability to make that shot.
Yeah, whether it's a floater or a lob is like, it's always a question. You never know as the defender, and that's the hardest thing to guard about Trae. I mean, kind of makes him borderline unguardable. I'm not the only person that says that, but you have no clue what he's going to do play to play.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that, Embiid is very hobbled right now with injuries.
Well, I mean, have they said what his injury is?
I don't think they've said anything.
It seems like he's playing with like a torn meniscus or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he probably has something that's actually messed up in his knee.
Yeah, and then now you have to rely on Ben Simmons. I mean, I feel like just Ben Simmons in the offense, if we can kind of, let me see if I can just find the offensive possession.
All right, we're getting into the thing I was the most excited to talk about.
What?
Ben Simmons. I'm so excited to talk about Ben Simmons. I get excited, especially I love how much you don't like Ben Simmons' game, right?
Yeah.
I think it's funny the flack that Ben Simmons gets for certain things that other players get flack for the opposite, right? And what I mean by that is 3-point shooting is one thing, right? But look at the discussion about Giannis right now in the media. Not only the media, but on Twitter, everybody, right? Stop taking threes, Giannis. Stop doing it. It's not what you do well. Stop. They're all bricks. They're ugly. Your team is better when you don't do that. I mean, I'm not trying to give Ben Simmons credit for not getting better at shooting 3-pointers. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm just saying, like, he does realize he's not good at it, right? Yeah. And if he was to do it despite it, it probably would hurt the team worse.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
So my point is always, like, with a guy like Ben Simmons, you have to take what he adds to the game, and then in terms of his defense, it's a ton.
Yeah.
It's a ton. Offensively, it's not as much as you might want, but, like, he still can run the fast break just about as good as anybody in the league, right? When he gets a full head of steam, and his passing is genuinely underrated.
No, I mean, I agree with his passing. I think the fast break stuff's always been like his game, but when you go into the playoffs, it's a different animal.
Sure.
Man. You don't have as many fast break opportunities as you would like. It's more, regular season NBA playing against the really trash teams. You can go back and forth. You can go up and down, but it's when you start going against the really competitive teams, like going deep into the playoffs, whether it's the Nets or whether it's the Hawks or whatever team they'll go up against. You're going to get a tough competition, and you're not going to get as many fast break opportunities as Ben Simmons would like. I mean, the reason why I talk about it is because look at Ben Simmons' positioning here. It's kind of just in the lane.
Sure. I mean, he's just making it harder for his team to score right there. I'm not necessarily even trying to defend him as an offensive player, right? I think Ben Simmons genuinely leaves a lot to be desired in terms of offense. Like, his size and athleticism, he should be a guaranteed 20-point-a-game scorer. Guaranteed, right? I think my bigger thing is just the attention the media gives him and the flack that people like Ben Simmons get just because people want him to be something that he's not. And you criticize for what he's not versus other players who get criticized for doing more than they should be, right? And I think it's an unfair criticism. Like, it really is. Whether or not you like Ben Simmons, whether or not his game fits what the model of the NBA should be, right? I think a lot of Philly's problem right now is just the fact that Embiid is hurt, right? And when it comes down to it, it's going to be people are going to give him flack for not pulling his weight offensively.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with that in terms of. But my thing too is that you got it's an offensive game now. It's no longer these defensive battles that you once had, where it was like 85-87, right? Offense is going to be supreme because if you can shoot, if you're taller than 6'5", if you are athletic, and you got the brain smarts, you will make it in this league a very long time. And that's where the direction of the game is going in. It's like you have to have all those things. It's no longer you can have one of those things.
To be a superstar, definitely.
And
definitely.
I just don't think of Ben Simmons as a superstar. I think of him as a star player. I think that he's a really good player for his role. I think he could be almost as close to like a Rondo.
I think my thing is more like I think people just need to change their expectations of him as a player. Like putting him in the superstar caliber thing, it's like it's just not reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't he be compared to somebody more like a Drew Holiday, or maybe even like a Chris Middleton? I know I just named $2, but like I'm saying in terms of like his skill ceiling versus other players and what you should reasonably expect from Ben Simmons on a night-to-night basis, right? Like his performance against Trae Young in game 4 was genuinely, he played pretty well, right? It was the defense around on the other people that was kind of lacking, you know? That's why Trae Young had 18 assists by the end of the game.
Yeah.
And, you know, Embiid played his worst game shooting he's ever played in the NBA in the second half. He missed every single shot he took in the second half. He was 0 for 12.
Yeah.
I think for me it's just Ben Simmons. I wish just people would readjust, recalibrate what they're looking for from Ben Simmons. Because if you take what he's trying to do and what Doc Rivers and Philly want him to be, it's hard for me to think he's not living up to expectations.
Christian Felicia is one of those trades. He's taller than 6'5".
That's about all he's got going for him.
Yeah.
That's about all he's got going for him. But you are right.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think a lot of people should adjust their expectations for a guy like, you know, Ben Simmons. But I think it's hard when he is the number 1 pick. It's hard for when, like, guys got drafted. I mean, Lonzo has the same criticism as well. It's like, dude, you were a number 2 pick. Why aren't you playing like Magic? You know, also the expectations of Magic Johnson saying, hey, I think it's just the expectations or the comparing of people. Like, a lot of people during that draft talked about Ben Simmons being the next LeBron James or the next Magic Johnson, when in reality, he's not anything like those guys. Like, Ben Simmons is not going to be the aggressive scorer.
He's just not. It's just not the way he plays basketball. It's just not it. And the sad part for this Philly team is, like, if Embiid was healthy, right?
Another guy that we could talk about.
Embiid is a weird one because is it the season or just him as a guy? Like
it's him. I think it's him as a guy. It's the same thing with AD. It's the same thing with all these bigs. It's just they always get injured. They can't make a whole season. And I think that 2 months in the bubble really did help the Lakers not having those 2 months playing, so AD can rest and not be on his feet so much, and then
made a big difference.
And I think maybe that's the direction or the game plan that the Lakers should go in for him. But you know, we're not talking about AD, but you know, Ben Simmons. Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
Same song and dance every year. You know, who do we trade? Who do we keep? I think the answer is very hard, but I think you might have to look to see what you get for Joel Embiid.
Disagree. This season is a perfect example of why Philly they literally could win the championship this season. They still can do it if Embiid's okay.
But is he going to be okay?
He's that good. And you know, the thing that has got me so happy watching Embiid this series is how much, like, he's been talking. You know, he's going back at Trae. You know, just like really trash talking, even the crowd. Did you see some of the times he was looking into the crowd and just cursing people out in Atlanta? I love that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily like the bad attitude in terms of like you're not playing well and then you're just talking guff just because. I just like the energy. Like, they seem like a team that knows they can compete if they're healthy, like, to win. I think you're right, Tyrese. I do think the Sixers are going to still win this series, personally.
You still think so?
I think so. I mean, they should win. And they should have won that last game if it was not just for a historic turn of events in terms of Embiid going so sour and every shot starting to fall for Atlanta.
I dubbed them the next dynasty. I got to go with the Hawks, man. I think the Hawks, they have all the pieces around them to be a successful team. Like Bogey, Trae, Capella, John. The only thing that sucks is that they lost DeAndre Hunter, who was a huge loss.
That's a huge loss for them. I need to be convinced still. I hate to be the Atlanta doubter. I mean, I put them as like the 7th seed coming into the season. And I was kind of right for a little bit until I was very wrong. And You know, I don't want to take anything away from them. They have played very, very well, and they've continued to rise to occasions over and over. Pete, Jalen Suggs is it Jalen Green? Isn't that his first name?
Yeah.
Both Jalen's?
Yeah, both Jalen's.
I like Suggs, honestly. I like Suggs the way he was playing in, you know, big time minutes. Like, he really seemed like he was ready for big time performances in the big leagues, you know. I like Suggs. I need to watch more Jalen Green.
Jalen Green's good, man.
If I could have just about anybody from this draft, it would be Jalen Suggs.
I like Cade a little bit more.
I like Cade the most. I mean, I would just in terms of pure like potential, Cade is the guy. But like if I was the second or third pick, I would be pretty hard pressed not to want to take Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, I think Jalen Suggs would be good. It just depends on where he gets drafted.
I'm gonna be this guy. I would take Jalen Suggs over Mobley.
I would too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was gonna get crap for that. I would take Suggs too.
My man.
Man, Sean, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. No, I'm just kidding. I wish sports were like 2K and you could turn injuries off. Dude, that'd be nice.
I wish that was life.
The NBA wishes the same thing. The NBA wishes the same exact thing.
I think we all do, man. I would love for it to be no injuries, just even just in real life.
God, that'd be so nice. What else do we want to talk about? I feel like we had other topics that we had.
I think that was really it. I mean, we talked about this. You have the 76ers tonight. I have the Hawks tonight.
Yeah, I bet on the Sixers. I put some money on the Sixers. I think Embiid is going to come out and have a really good game. And, you know, I heard Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer say this, one of my favorite analysts in all of basketball right now. He said it, like, he put it in a really nice way, I thought, which is like, this playoff shows how easy it is for these superstar offensive talents to bounce back game to game, right? Like Embiid can have that 0 for 12 in the second half. There's no reason he can't come out tonight and be 15 of like 21 and just destroy the Hawks. Like, I think it's going to happen. I do have a topic we need to talk about. I have a question I want to ask you. After watching the Nets-Bucks game last night, which I think we need to talk about the Nets and Bucks just a little bit. Is Giannis the most
regular season player ever?
Is he the new most flawed superstar in the league?
I think he has been for a while, and it's been since last year. I think that second MVP that he won was a little fluky.
I don't think he should have won it. I didn't think he should have won it when he did win it, to be honest with you. My question is more like, is he... to go back to our MVP conversation, is he like the Westbrook right now? Like, I see a lot of similarities in what they do for a team between the two of them. I think it's better with Giannis.
Yeah, I think Giannis, there's a little bit more things you can work with. But for me, I said it yesterday, I just feel like Giannis' basketball IQ is just not there at the moment, where I feel like when he does attack, when he does drive, it's like a straight line drive every single time. Attack the basket, no other type of moves to his game. And the one time he decided to do something different, it was in a very crucial situation where he tried to back down Harden, and instead of, try to back him down, maybe one or two more, see if he can't make a quick pass to like a diving cutting man from the 45.
Yeah.
He decides to shoot a fadeaway, and it's like, dude, like, that's not your game. And I know that these NBA talk shows, the Stephen A's, the Skip Baylesses, don't listen to those clowns.
Nah, those dudes have no clue. I just saw Did you see Stephen A. just said Donovan Mitchell's the greatest Utah Jazz player of all time already? That's like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
They're clowns, and that's why I don't listen to them anymore.
Nah, there's no reason.
It's just no reason to listen to anybody besides the charge.
That's it.
That's it. No, but in all seriousness, listen to a lot of these other guys. Listen to a lot of NBA podcasts. Look at NBA math.
I think Kevin O'Connor, I just said his name. He's a smart dude. He knows what he's talking about.
And it's just like, but then it's because of they're talking analytics, they're talking coaching stuff, they're talking this stuff. It's a lot more basketball nerd stuff that a lot of casual fans are like, well, I'm not really that interested in it. I just want to hear what people's takes are. And, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless have monopolized this sort of trash TV market where it's like everything that they say is gospel. And it just, everything that they say, because everything that they say is now repeated on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just absolutely head-scratching. It's nauseating. It's infuriating because that's not the NBA. And And again, I think going back to the Giannis conversation, he's a flawed superstar. He's really flawed. He has a lot of things he needs to work on.
There was a moment last night that illustrated that, like, it hit it on my head. Like, that's a weird way to say that sentence. It's bad grammar. Like, it got stuck in my head and I couldn't stop thinking about it for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I texted you in the middle of the game and I said to you, I was like screaming. I was like, I think I'm a Giannis fan. Like, I can't not root for this guy because it seems like he just wants it so bad.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I sent that, because there was a moment where he was at the top of the, he was on the outside perimeter, right? And he went up to, like, pump fake, like a three. And then he thought about it and he was like, I'm not going to do that. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then he ran in and the crowd, like, was like, oh my God, he didn't do it, right? Only a quarter later, when the tide started to turn, the same exact situation happens. And he shoots the three. And it happened to go in. But if you watch the moment, I wish we could find the clip.
We can look it up.
He literally he didn't think it was going in. He knew as soon as he shot it, it was a mistake. He put his hands on his face and he was like, oh God, And it was just one of those moments where this guy is so in his head when it comes to adversity in a game like this.
Yeah.
He really falls apart. He really does. And it pains me to see, because at the end of the game, he even admitted it when he said KD is the best player in the world.
You know what it was, like third quarter maybe?
It was in the third quarter, maybe even the early fourth quarter.
We kind of looked for it.
Yeah, keep going a little bit farther than this. But yeah, I mean, the Bucks just in general have been such a travesty of coaching. I would argue worse than the Clippers. Would you say?
Terrible. Like, Bud he's just not cut out to be a coach, like a head coach. He can be an assistant.
No, he should be a small market coach. He'd be perfect for the Magic.
I mean, he's perfect. I mean, technically the Bucks are a small market.
Just for a team that's like this good, though. Like, if you're putting all your money into winning the championship, Bud, it cannot be your guy. This is the ultimate show of why that can't be true. Their defensive rotations have been maybe the worst in any playoff series I've seen in the last 5 years. Is that crazy?
A little bit.
Really? You think their defense last night, how do you not just go at Harden all game? He was 20%. They even said it. He should have had no business. He couldn't sidestep on the court. And they kept trying to drive on KD and on these other guys. It was atrocious. And that's just the offensive side. Why is Drew on Harden? He wasn't even shooting the ball when he had it. And if he did, it was definitely not going in. It was all bad. Watching the Bucks this playoff series has just been eye-opening in terms of seeing Giannis lose his cool when it matters the most, but the Bucks franchise as a whole lose it when it comes down to it. Because even Drew has been disappointing to me. His offensive game has been so lackluster.
I've been disappointed with Middleton. I've been for 2 years. We talked about it last night on the stream. I think his offensive output in the playoffs, like numbers-wise, has been atrocious.
Yeah, it's been terrible too. And I'm a Chris Middleton defender. Like, I actually am. I think he's not as bad as people like to think he is.
Yeah.
But he's been bad. He's been bad. I won't defend it. The Bucks. I was so hard picking them coming into this for the exact reason why they should be winning this series, which is the Nets are not deep enough to sustain an injury. Really.
Yeah.
There's no reason they should have lost that game last night. Kyrie. Yeah, I mean, it's a travesty because Harden was on the court last night, but Harden was not on the court. It was not James.
No, he was
Harden.
on one leg.
Yeah, it was not James Harden. He was a decoy for 48 minutes. They literally had a guy who couldn't run on the court for 46 minutes.
That shows you that Bud has to get fired, dude. Like, that's
it's such a travesty.
No coaching adjustment, no nothing.
There was nothing. You have your best defender guarding a guy who's clearly not playing 50%
Yeah.
the whole game with no adjustment. It was actually a travesty. This is a team that would really, really, really benefit from a veteran player coach like Chauncey Billups, and I know that's who you want for your Celtics, which actually we should go over to the Brad Stevens thing. I know Tyrese wanted to talk about that, and I think I'm curious to hear your opinion. I think like Chauncey would be a great pick. Like if Monty Williams was an available person, he would have been a great pick too, you know? They really got to move on from Bud after this. Even if they end up winning this series, they should still fire him.
There's your guy.
Connaughton. I mean, that was the play. I texted you. Like, Pat Connaughton is starting. He's getting 35 plus minutes for this team.
I can't believe, and I talked about it last night, I think Eric Craig is his name, defensive stopper, should have been out there. Bobby Portis. Like, dude, that guy stretches the floor. It's like you gotta have these guys out there. But I don't know what's Bud's obsession with Pat Connaughton. Like he's in love with that guy for whatever reason.
I mean, I really think it's just because DiVincenzo's hurt.
Yeah.
And just to kind of have a version of him, it's Pat Connaughton. It doesn't make any sense. Pat Connaughton is
Pat
terrible.
Connaughton sounds like a rabbit character, like in a fairy tale.
Dude, I watched literally James Harden on one leg, 15%. I watched him beat Pat Connaughton off the drive once, like off the dribble. It was insane. It was insanity. And this guy is still getting minutes. Yeah, the Bucks, even if they win the series, it's a loss.
Yeah.
It's a major loss because they're not going to have the confidence to beat either Philly or Atlanta after this.
No.
I mean, really, there's no way. And I think the ultimate exposure would be the Sixers versus the Bucks, watching Embiid absolutely expose Giannis for the entirety of the series. Because it would show the difference in how well-rounded Embiid's game is.
Yeah. But we'll see what happens, man. Let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of this Brooklyn Nets Bucks team? You know, we didn't even talk or even scratch the surface with Kevin Durant having a virtuoso type of game.
I think one of the 3 best games I've ever watched. Not in person. I wish.
But
in person.
by watching, I think Kobe's 85, is that one of them? Just kind of like that type of stuff, or more so like?
I mean, just in terms of how much it meant to the team when they needed it, and how important the game was. I mean, it was more important than Kobe's 85. Not to take it away from Kobe.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an incredible game, but they needed every second of that. And there's that picture of Steve Nash hugging KD after the game, like it's his grandfather who just saved him.
Just saved him.
Yeah, he just
Thank you.
the lifeguard at the beach who just saved him from a great white shark. I mean, seriously, KD, that was maybe the ultimate put the team on your back type performance. All 48 minutes, didn't look tired even once. Even Jeff Green,
Uncle Jeff.
Uncle Jeff was insanity. Let's talk about the Celtics. I know you're a Celtics man. Let's talk about Brad. What did you think? What was your first reaction?
To Danny Ainge getting fired, or
to just the change? Because I think it was fairly obvious that Danny was gone.
I think it had to happen.
The shocker was the Stevens part of it.
Yeah, I think the shocker was the Stevens part because it's like he's never done it before, and I'm not so sure he has a great aspect of being that type of guy. Because I'm curious to know whether that was Danny Ainge's part in the trades that happened and bringing in Kemba Walker, or was that Brad Stevens? And if it's Brad Stevens, I don't want no part of him in the organization.
I think it had to be Ainge.
It had to be.
It had to be. I think there's a couple things that I've been thinking about since it happened. Mm-hmm. One, it's funny how much crap Danny Ainge gets from Celtics fans. Like, the last few years were terrible. Like, nobody's going to deny that, right? Everything starting with the Kyrie season went really awry, you know? But everything he did from, 2003 was when he started. Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of good things for the Celtics, right? And who had a better draft track record back-to-back than Tatum and Brown, right? Like, that's insanity. Those are two guys that were not even considered players that were great picks at the time.
Yeah.
And they turned out to be 2 of the best players drafted in the last few years. But to go to Stevens, I mean, maybe this is just how our difference of opinions with these guys. Like, I don't know if it's a terrible idea. I'm not going to make a choice one way or the other because he has no track record of doing anything in a position like that. But it can't be worse, right? Which is not what you want to hear as a Celtics fan.
Yeah.
It can't be worse than what Ainge was doing. And really, with what you guys are stuck with, who could you have got that would have fixed it all?
I don't know.
Nobody, I don't think. I mean, you guys are stuck with Kemba. Like he's a nightmare contract. He might be the worst contract in the league right now based on his injuries. And if you think about getting a guy, I think just organizationally what moving Stevens from the head coach without firing him does for you is it does make room to get a guy like Chauncey Billups, right? Yeah. Which I know everybody is saying Chauncey's the guy. Like, he should be the guy. It's the perfect fit. You get a veteran player who everybody's going to listen to, right? And you shuffle things around. Like, the Celtics organization wants Brad Stevens forever.
Yeah.
They want him to be there forever.
I'm not sure why, but
I think you're crazy. Like, I think if you look at the Celtics' success over the last 6 years, you guys are spoiled.
It's been Brad Stevens, but my whole thing is that I think Brad Stevens, as he kind of gets into a different role, I'm just not sure if like the GM role is really something that he has the knowledge or grasp of. Coaching wise, it's like X's and O's, but now it's like you got to start going into contracts and start talking about all that stuff. And it's just, to me, the one worry I have about it is I want to know what moves that he was pushing Danny Ainge to do. Like, was he pushing him to get Kawhi Leonard when Kawhi Leonard was a free agent? Was he pushing him to get Kevin Love when Kevin Love made that move to Cleveland? The Celtics could have came in there and done something?
Like, the one thing I'll say for Stevens in terms of making hard decisions, right? Like, and I don't remember who I heard say this, make this example, but it's a good example. Like, he did it as the Celtics coach. Moving Hayward down in minutes like he did and making him the fourth option was not what Stevens probably wanted to do, right? That probably wasn't an easy choice for him, like how close the two of them were. And seeing how everything went, I mean, Tyrese, that's a really good point. That is probably number one why it worked out so well, is the contract of it all, right? But I mean, if you look at what the Celtics have been in terms of an organization, roster-wise, right? Steve, he hasn't been working with all that much. I mean, I know you guys have Tatum and Brown, but, like, they've been in their early 20s the entirety of the time of his coaching. You guys made it to Eastern Conference Finals when you had no business being there.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the roster construction was your biggest problem the entire time.
Always has been.
Always has been. So if you take a coach like Stevens, who's been still getting you to the Eastern Conference Finals or into the playoffs, does that mean he's going to be a good GM? Of course not. But I could see why they don't want to get rid of him.
Yeah, but I just think for him, I think the Indiana job, when it opened up, he definitely should have taken it, man. Like, that was dream job, dream.
It would have been a good fit.
I think all that was there, man. And
yeah, it would have been a good fit. I'm scared to be a GM. Want him gone. Same guy who drafted Romeo Langford because he's from Indy. I mean, was that him, though? Was that... that's what I really need to know. Like, I need to know how much of Danny Ainge... Because Danny Ainge has been like a risk taker the entirety of his time as the GM for the Celtics. He traded Antoine Walker almost instantly from the Celtics. And in 2003, when he traded Antoine Walker, he was a Celtics favorite at the time. Right? It was a risky move to make. And he did it anyway because it was, in his mind, the right choice to make. And it panned out. But my point being, Danny made crazy choices a lot of the time.
To me, it's just like we needed to figure out a way just to...
Because, like, this is the one point where I start to think maybe it could work, right? Take a guy like Chauncey Billups if he's going to be your next coach, right? And the one complaint about Chauncey and the reason he's not a head coach now is inexperience as a head coach. So if you have your GM be an incredibly experienced head coach who's just came off of, like, what is that, 7-year tenure as an NBA head? That's really long in the NBA. 7 years for one team is crazy in a carousel type coaching league. I think there's more ways it could work. Like if you have Brad kind of helping Chauncey in terms of the coaching a little bit, right? And then Chauncey's going to have more of a voice and impact in the locker room than Brad did. Like, let's be honest, for obvious reasons. Like Brad has never played in the NBA, like amongst many other reasons. I don't know. I don't think it's terrible.
It's not terrible, but I'm very pessimistic. I will see like what happens in these next couple drafts, roster construction wise, like what we're doing in the off season, because stuff has to be done in the off season to get this roster even remotely some great role players.
Like what could Brad even do to change your guys' mind, like as a Celtics fan? That's the thing that kind of confuses me. I don't really think like there's much he can do that even makes it okay.
They're talking about Carol Lawson or Becky Hammond. We're screwed. I think Jay's
going to demand a trade. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I hope not. I mean, I still think Chauncey Billups is going to be the number one guy.
I think it's going to be Chauncey. I think he's the coach. Unless
you're gonna go
better. I mean, just unless a better job opens up. Yeah. I think Chauncey's the guy that everybody wants right now. Like, would you be surprised if Chauncey's waiting to see if Bud gets fired? Like, really? I think there's other people are waiting to see if Coach Bud gets fired. Amongst other people. Ty Lue, what if he gets fired? You don't think people want that Clippers job too?
I mean, I think depending on what Kawhi does, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of jobs I think are very enticing, but I think the Chauncey Billups would be nice because he got drafted there and it didn't work out there. And I think it'd be a nice way for him to kind of revitalize like a Celtics career of like, I didn't make it as a player, but I made it as a coach.
Yeah, and I just think in terms of getting like, I'll compare it to like just putting CP3 on that roster with the Suns. Like what that veteran voice does for a team is like, it's drastic how much of an impact that can make. And, maybe just having somebody like Chauncey be that guy for Tatum and Brown is the difference maker. It's a needle mover.
We'll see, man. It's going to be a very interesting thing. We got Tyrese in the chat just kind of saying, man, he'll pull the trigger on Becky or Kara. I don't think he's going to pull the...
I don't think so.
I think Becky's going to get, like...
Jay's gone?
Jays are gone, like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Oh, no way.
I don't think Jason Tatum's gone.
I don't think either of them are gone. They're both too important to the city, too.
I think maybe Jaylen Brown in terms of like a trade, like if you're going to trade to get another guy to come in, but
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't trade either of them.
I wouldn't trade Jason Tatum. I know Jason Tatum's a Kobe fan. I know that
I wouldn't get rid of either of them. As young as they are and how much they do well-rounded, I would keep them both and just try and get a third guy that's not Kemba or Kyrie. And really, like Marcus Smart has got to go.
Yeah.
Like 100%. If I'm a Celtics fan and I see Brad Stevens trade Marcus Smart and get rid of Kemba Walker,
is that enough?
I'm happy. I'm happy
You're
at
happy
that point. Because like Marcus Smart, I'm sorry to tell you, Celtics fans, he's a big problem with your team. Like he really is. I know like how much he brings to the mentality of the team and the hard-working stuff. But it's all the negative parts of his game that really bring you guys down a lot. Brown saying Boston is racist and JT.
I don't see them being a Boston market law. You guys just don't see it. I mean,
it's possible, man. But the Celtics have been around forever.
They've been around forever. They're tied with the most championships. I think the biggest thing for me is going to be changing the perspective of it, like changing that mentality from the players. And I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are trying to do that.
I think so.
And obviously, depending on who the coach is hired, maybe they can do that as well. It's just veteran players have to come in, man. Like
they just need to get that like that killer mentality, man. Like seeing like the Kyrie stuff was like, if you're a Celtics fan or a Celtics player and you let this guy stomp on the logo and then you're high-fiving him and hugging him afterwards, like this dude tanked your franchise for 2 years, and then he's spitting on the logo. It's like, man up and fight back against these guys, right? Don't just respect people blindly. And I think if they get some veteran leadership, Chauncey, what about like KG? Why can't KG come be an assistant coach with Chauncey?
As much as I would love that, I think maybe you can make him like a part owner or something like
Why
that.
not?
I think that'd be a lot better.
I think it could happen.
'Cause I know he wants to be. I think he wanted to own the Wolves, and they just won't sell it to him.
Yeah,
So.
that fell through. I honestly think KG is going to have something to do with the Celtics.
Jaylen Brown to Atlanta, JT to LA. Man, Tyrese, come on, man. You're a Celtics fan.
It's all falling apart.
You're my Celtics fan. Come on now. We got this.
I don't think Tatum's going anywhere. I think you guys got Tatum forever. Unfortunately for everybody else, because he's incredible.
I think Robert Williams is not a bad player, Tyrese. I know you want us to get a real big, and I think Sabonis would be a nice addition, or even like a Karl-Anthony Towns, but I think Grant Williams is like that.
You don't need Karl-Anthony Towns. I'll stop you right there.
You don't think so?
Absolutely not. Talk about getting even weaker mentally. Like, I'm sorry. I know that's so mean to say to the guy. He's had a bad year. I get it. I'm sorry. All right. That's not who you need to change the mentality of a team, though. Like, you guys need a hard-nosed person who isn't Marcus Smart. Like, you need the mentality of Marcus Smart with better play attached to it. Like, really, unfortunately, you can't get him anymore. You could have had him basically for free. CP3 would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Just changing the mentality of these guys.
I mean, this is last year on the contract for the Suns, so
he's not going anywhere.
You don't think so? You don't think he goes to like another team, go play with LeBron?
I think he's happy. I think he's happy there. I think he wants to be with Monty and do their thing. Should have kept Baines and went up. I mean, Baines would have been helpful for you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that the people you guys lost that would have been helpful for the team.
Yeah.
All right, last question.
All right.
The Celtics, Clippers, Pelicans,
Yeah.
or the Bucks. Which of those jobs do you think is the best? Like, which one would you want the most if you were a head coach in the league?
Honestly, the Pelicans.
Really? You think so?
I think they have so much talent around them. Like you can unlock the potential, which we keep talking about for the next like 5 or 6 years with Ingram. Zion is coming into his own. Lonzo, depending on if you can get him locked into a contract. I think that roster would just be fun to play with those guys and see if you can make something out of those players.
I mean, I don't even want to talk about Stan Van Gundy. Like, he literally shouldn't have any business near the NBA.
Scott Brooks parted ways, Van Gundy parted ways.
I mean, just that sentence is crazy when you stop to think about it, that even they needed to even be parted ways with. Those guys haven't been good coaches in years.
Yeah.
Gosh, man, it's a travesty.
But who would you pick?
I don't necessarily know if I disagree. The problem, I think, with New Orleans is Zion actually even going to stay?
He'll stay.
You think so? I mean, I'm not trying to get excited for the Knicks, but he makes some weird comments about wanting to play in like a bigger city like New York too frequently.
I mean,
I'm not even saying he's going to go to the Knicks. I just think it's too frequent that he wants to play in a big city. Like, he says stuff like that.
Unfortunately, you got kind of screwed over in the ping pong lottery for him.
It is what it is. Oh, and then, let's talk about that really quick, too. Mavs fired. I guess they didn't fire her. They parted ways with Don Nelson.
Fired.
Don Nelson has been there forever. 24 years with the Mavericks. I think that's a great choice.
Yeah.
Like, get a good roster around Luka, finally. Please help him out. Please help him out.
Yeah, they need to start doing something because that Luka ball is just not going to be sustainable for...
I mean, I'll disagree. I think it is. It's just put a couple good guys around him, and he can take you wherever you want.
I think he's going to go down the same path as like a LeBron, where like you realize it's like, oh shoot, like this style is not going to work. And I think that's something that I think his conditioning has to be up a little bit. I don't think he's as conditioned as I would like him to be. I feel like he's gotten a lot bigger.
Luka? What are you talking about? You think any of it has to do with him? He might be the best player in the league already.
He's one of them, but I think he could be even better if he lost a little bit of weight. I think he's just not in. I don't think he's in.
I don't think it matters.
Physical condition, like just conditioning wise, I just don't see him.
I just think
puffing and puffing.
I just think he needs even like half of a better team next to him. Like, he almost beat the Clippers on his own.
Well, they need to get rid of Porzingis. That's number one.
He is awful. He is off.
From unicorn to a freaking mule.
Dude, he is so bad. I mean, really, the Mavericks team in general, like, if you were to look at the two teams that made the worst roster choices coming into this season in retrospect, it's probably the Mavericks and the Pelicans.
Tyrese, would you trade Luka for Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker?
I mean, they would never take
No,
it.
you would need like Jason Tatum in there. You couldn't do it.
I don't even think that's enough, honestly.
Yeah.
Jason, there. I don't think there's any package almost any team could put together that gets Luka back.
Yeah.
There's none, really. Maybe Zion in something, but even then, why would anybody do that?
I don't think it's going to happen.
No, Luka's not going anywhere unless he wants to leave.
Yeah. But he might.
He might. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. I think Mark Cuban's just going to give him the franchise if he wants to go somewhere. I would. Anything else, Bernie?
I think that's it.
You want to just make predictions for tonight?
Yeah, let's see here. We got 2 games. Philly, Atlanta, Clippers, Utah. I got Utah tonight, and I also got the Hawks.
Wow. Okay, the 2 dogs. Both. Oh, no. Actually, the line is adjusted, obviously.
Yeah.
The line is adjusted, obviously. I bet Philly and the Clippers, which in retrospect is a bad choice because the Clippers not great. However, I did hedge that with a pretty big bet on Utah with Donovan Mitchell having a big game. And now in retrospect, I think Utah is probably going to come out and play pretty good.
Yeah.
I still would look out for that good Paul George game. I still.
You think so? Well, I mean, he has to. He's going to be the number 1 guy.
I genuinely think he's just going to play good tonight.
You think so, huh?
I would go so far as to say look from like a high 30s game from Paul George.
High 30s,
yeah. High 30s with a good amount of assists. I like his playmaking he's been playing with lately.
Okay.
And Marcus Morris has been playing with a lot of confidence too. He's been shooting well. I know that's a little crazy. I'm talking about Paul George and Marcus Morris as if they're gonna both have great games, but they might.
Yeah, we'll see.
I still think I'll say Jazz Sixers.
Jazz Sixers, all right. You heard it here first.
Jazz and Sixers look for a huge game from Embiid too.
Some reports saying that Celtics should trade Jason Tatum for Luka to pair with Brown.
I mean, if that trade could happen, it's a no-brainer. I love Tatum, but Luka's different. Yeah. He's on a different level.
We'll see what happens, man. I'll probably go live a little bit later this week to talk about some other things. So if you guys are interested in another stream, go ahead and do that. Again, guys, we do have a merchandise and also a donate as well. So if you guys are interested in any of that stuff, be on the lookout for that merch. Be on the lookout to acquire anything if you guys want to donate. If you guys feel inclined to do so, it's the option is there for you as well.
Marcus Cousins, X Factor. I mean, he definitely will need to step up and do something. That is for certain.
Definitely. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it here for the stream. Thank you, Pete, once again for coming in here live.
Thank you for having me, man. I was blessed.
It's been a long time.
Seeing people in person for the first time in years. It's been nice.
So, again, guys, leave a comment in the section down below of any part of this stream that you found interesting, whether we talked about the Jazz, CP3, kind of the COVID protocol, all NBA is a joke. We talked about all that stuff. So make sure you guys please leave a like, a comment, and just subscribe to the channel, man. That's how this channel grows. That's how we get a lot more people going. And again, don't be afraid to share this with your friends and also kind of share with people that are basketball junkies like we are. And also don't forget, we got a merch and we also got a donate section as well. So if you guys are interested in doing that, it's there for you. But other than that, Pete, do you have one last thing to say before we go out? I
really don't, man. I hope Kawhi's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. I hope Kawhi and CP3 are fine.
I hope so too, man. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for The Charge. Giving the latest NBA news and rumors and basketball analysis here. Talking about the X's and O's. Talking about just kind of gut feeling and what's going to be going on just from eye test stuff. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. This is Pete.